Good morning, Blue Devils.
Welcome to Season 3 of the Blue Devil broadcast.
This morning, we're starting off strong, but on a solemn and emotional note, with a live episode honoring the memory of those who lost their lives on September 11th, 2001.
Will everyone please stand and join us in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated.
To begin our memorial service, Ms. Brown, principal of Huntington High School, will give some brief opening remarks, followed by Mr. Levy, chairperson of the Humanities Department.
This morning, we gather to remember and honor the lives lost on September 11th, 2001. It was a day that forever changed our nation and the world, a day marked by unimaginable tragedy, profound heroism, and unwavering resilience. This memorial ceremony stands not just as a tribute to the nearly 3,000 souls who perished, but also as a symbol of our collective commitment to remember, to reflect, and to ensure that their stories are never forgotten. As we stand here, we are reminded of the courage and strength demonstrated by so many, the first responders who ran toward danger, the families who endured profound loss, and the communities that came together in the spirit of unity and hope.
We have all been deeply affected by the events of that day, and soon you will hear how your teachers were also impacted. Those powerful days after the towers fell and the entire months following are often viewed as a tragedy. The lesson to learn is that what presents as a tragedy can become a triumph. My nephew, Danny Pryl, when in 6th grade, watched in horror how the events of that fateful day unfolded, then experienced how his New York City firefighter father, Greg, worked tirelessly on the pile. After attending West Point, Lieutenant Dan defended us in 2015 in Afghanistan as he flew helicopters to evacuate wounded soldiers. Thus, he and countless others turned a tragedy into triumph, heroes to those wounded soldiers and their families. The triumph is remembered. Remember today and always all our soldiers and non-military personnel, men and women who have suffered great pain and loss serving our country. You students were not born when those events occurred, so you wonder, what can I do? We ask you to not just remember the stories you hear, but know what can be done after a tragedy. A triumph can naturally result when we do what is right. So ask your older family and friends to share their 9/11 story, and I trust that you will find more triumph than tragedy.
On behalf of the Huntington School community, I want to say thank you to those who are willing to share their story with us.
We will now hear from some teachers about their 9/11 and what they experienced on that day.
After 9/11, everybody in the country came together. There was, it didn't matter where you were from, it didn't matter who you were. Everybody had flags out, everybody felt united, everybody put their differences aside, and we were just all Americans at that point. There was a great deal of pride in our country and a great deal of unity.
On 9/11, I was in school. When we first heard about it, I was sitting in my English class in 8th grade. They made an announcement over the loudspeakers. Everyone was really quiet. And they announced that a plane had just hit the World Trade Center. My teacher stood up from where we were and ran out of the room. We later found out that his wife worked in the Trade Center.
The halls were an eerie quiet, and all you heard was the sound of news radio because we didn't have smartphones. There were no televisions to find out information in the building, so everything we learned about was through radio. So it's all you heard was the sound of the voice of the news announcer, and it was a really, really scary experience because we didn't know what to expect. And when we went home that day, I just remember the sky was so beautifully blue, and you couldn't believe that on such a beautiful day something so tragic could happen.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars
may be seated. Thank you to our choir teacher, Mr. Colasanti, and the entire chamber choir for that beautiful rendition. We now hear a poem by Kevin Powell, read by his senior Isabella Correcchia Johnson.
Kevin Powell is an American writer and activist.
He was at an event in Syracuse on the day of September 11th and was supposed to fly back that day, but instead his friend called him saying not to get on his flight because there was an attack on New York.
Without further ado, let's send it to Isabella to read us this poem.
September 11th by Kevin Powell. Might it be, as my mother said to me on this ugly, sinful day, that the world is on its last go-round. Hijacked wild birds strip the sky of its innocent morning breath. Steel towers crumple like playing cards on an uneven metal table. Unrehearsed screams we dare not hear leap from windows into the open, bottomless palms of God. I cannot stand to watch life reduce itself to powdery dust and soot lathering the devil's inflamed mouth. But I am fixated on the television anyhow. Is this what slavery was like? Is this what the Holocaust was like? Is this what famine is like? Is this what war is like? Is this how you felt, dear mother, when King and the two Kennedys were killed? I want to stitch up the sky, deny humans the right to fly, cry until my tears have washed hatred from the mildewed underarms of history. And I want to say to the firemen, ah yes, the firemen, your husband, your father, your brother, your uncle, your friend, thank you for speeding to the end of your time, and thank you for showing us that courage is a soul so unselfish it would scale a collapsing building to liberate a stranger. Even as your blood relatives wonder if you are alive, from the remains of this madness, I detect a heartbeat called life from the remains of this madness. I smell an aroma called love from the remains of this madness. I embrace a body called humanity from the remains of this madness. I construct a dream called hope from the remains of this madness. I will ride the wings of the deceased into the clouds, scribble their names on the sun, erect a memorial to the moon, chant the blues for New York City, then resurrect a world where a newborn rose will get through the broken concrete.
After 9.
Isabella.
We will now observe a moment of silence to honor the many lives lost on September 11th. Thank you. Next, we have our high school trumpet players who will play a performance, another music piece for you, Taps.
As we come to the close of today's ceremony, we remember not only the loss and grief that September 11th brought into our lives, but also the strength, courage, and resilience that emerged in its aftermath. We have honored the memory of those who were taken from us far too soon, paid tribute to the bravery of the first responders, and acknowledged the countless acts of kindness and solidarity that arose from that tragic day. Let today be a reminder that even in the darkest of times, we find light in the love and unity we share with one another. May we carry forward the lessons of that day, the power of community, the importance of compassion, and the enduring strength of the human spirit. May we continue to honor the memory of those who were lost by living lives marked by hope, kindness, and a commitment to building a more just and peaceful world. Thank you all for joining us today, for remembering, and for standing together in unity and remembrance. I hope that we continue our day with a renewed sense of purpose and with the knowledge that we are stronger together. I also must give a huge thank you to everyone who made this memorial possible. Mr. Levy, Mr. Colasanti and the choir, Isabella, Liam, Dana, and of course, a huge thank you to Mrs. Temperino and her amazing advanced broadcast journalism students.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Those were some very touching words. We are excited to have you as our new principal.
And thank you, Liam Lavertu and Dana Garcia Martinez, for your trumpet performance. Now, to wrap up this episode, let's give a summary about what we spoke about today, just in case you missed anything.
On the morning of September 11th, 2001, 19 al-Qaeda terrorists hijacked 4 commercial planes in the United States.
2 planes were flown into the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in New York City, causing both towers to collapse. A 3rd plane hit the Pentagon in Arlington, Virginia, and a 4th hit an open field in Pennsylvania. This was the biggest attack on U.S. soil.
Our country came together on this day and in the days after. As you go through your day today, take time to remember and honor those who lost their lives on the day and the first responders who risked their lives to help.
Our hearts go to all the families and friends around the world who have been impacted by this.
Thank you so much for tuning in for our first live 9/11 memorial ceremony. Bye, Blue Devils.